operate in the country by our regulator, IPAC. Our mandate is to promote and protect the interests of our members so that they are operating in an optimum environment that allows them to conduct their business as desired along the standards that are set by the industry. We also have a mandate to raise awareness on insurance, short-term insurance products and services, which is what has led us to presenting to you today. We value the partnership that we have with the media in that it is an information dissemination tool for the industry. So we believe that the information that we give to you will filter to the public and everybody will be made aware of the short-term insurance, its benefits, the products on offer, and the services that our members offer. Allow me to get into the presentation. I was given a topic by IPAC to say we should present on insurance premiums and insurance cover. So that's what my presentation will zero in on today. I suppose, Tinashe, I will present and then the questions will come in at the end.
Yes, they will come in at the end.
All right. Technology harassing me again here. All right. I'll start by defining insurance, which is, I want to believe it's now general knowledge to the group of journalists that we have on the platform. Insurance is a contract which an individual or an entity pays an insurance company in exchange for financial protection or reimbursement of losses resulting from a covered event. The event, at times you find it's called a risk that we provide cover against. So generally, this is what insurance is. So when a person takes out insurance, the intention is that in the event of a loss that is covered against, should it occur, the insurer will then step in and provide compensation to restore the policyholder to the original position that they were in before they suffered damages from the risk that is insured against. So these risks, the damages or the mishaps that could be experienced result from accidents, injury, property damage. We also get cover against our liabilities that we incur for damage or injury to third parties. So we just don't get cover for ourselves, but we also look at third parties, their products that provide such cover. So when we talk about insurance coverage, we are referring to the amount of risk or liability that is covered for an individual or an entity. We're looking at, when you say entity, we're looking at a company by way of insurance services. So when we talk of services, we're talking about the products that we offer: motor insurance product, fire insurance, and also risk management services, which is comes in the form of advice or surveys to bring to light the risks that are faced by potential policyholders or policyholders that need attention. So these are the insurance services and products that individuals can access. In exchange for that, for the insurance coverage, the insured person is responsible for paying what we call a premium. So without a premium, without having paid the premium, there is no contract of insurance. So a contract of insurance is between two parties, the insured and the insurer, with the insured paying a premium to get cover from the insurer. So once that premium is then paid, you find that the contract of insurance is now initiated and it's now active. as we speak about insurance coverage, somebody might ask, how do I determine what the coverage is or the amount of risk is? When you approach an insurer or a broker, they do assist in coming up with the insurance coverage that is required. And this is based on a number of factors that they consider. The risks that you face, if it's an asset, the value of the asset that you want to insure, your activities in life that you carry out, your lifestyle and all. So that determines the level of insurance coverage that you then get from an insurer. I will move on. We have said that for there to be an insurance cover, a potential insured a potential policy holder has to pay what we call a premium. So this premium is a fee or a charge, shall we say, in a layman's language, that you pay to access the insurance services, which is the cover that you will be given. And once that premium is paid, in terms of the insurance contract, the insurer assumes liability. It takes up the risk that you have come with and said you want to be insured against. So once that has happened and the insurer has accepted your policy, your premium, sorry, once the insurer has accepted your premium, that means you are on cover, you are covered, you've got an insurance policy. And with that insurance policy, should a claim arise, then the insurer should compensate you. But if you walk in to an insurer's office, to a broker's office, you fill in a form, a proposal form, that's what we call it, which is the application form. You provide all the necessary information that is required. You sign your insurance, your proposal form, and you walk out and don't pay an insurance premium. Even if the premium, you would have been notified of the premium that you should pay. So if you don't pay that premium, that means there is no cover. You do not have an insurance policy. That is for a new policy. For a renewal, you're coming in and you've been notified that your policy is due for renewal and you still don't pay your premium. That would then result in what we call a cancellation of a policy. Effectively, you are not on cover again. So where there is no premium that has been paid as is required by the terms and conditions of the contract, you do not have an insurance cover and cannot come in and make a claim and expect to be paid. I'll move on to talk about coverage versus the premium. We say the extent and type of insurance coverage that you have and the value will be considered in determining the premium that is to be paid. So the insurer can only tell you the premium that you should pay upon assessment of the policy that you want and all the information that has been requested for has been submitted. So you find that when you look at the different types of policies that we have, whether it's motor insurance, it's domestic insurance, it's engineering insurance, there are various levels of cover that you take. The simplest that I'll refer to is a motor insurance. You've got a comprehensive policy and you've got a third-party policy, which is the basic statutory policy. Obviously, a comprehensive policy will attract higher premium rates and higher premiums in terms of value. Allow me to say at this stage, when people are shopping for a policy, we always want to go for the cheaper premiums, whether it's an issue of affordability or it's an issue of wanting just to comply with some regulatory policy, some regulatory insurance policy requirements that are there. We always tend to run for the cheaper one, for the cheaper policy that we are offered. However, it should be noted that when it then comes to compensation, many people are found wanting for not having that comprehensive insurance policy that gives you high compensation rates that probably gives you coverage in terms of the risks that have been included in the policy. Where you have a basic policy, it's cheap, but you just covered for very little, and probably the extent of the risks that you are looking at that are included in the policy are very limited. So we are always encouraging potential clients and policyholders to ensure that they consider the comprehensive insurance covers, and as well as the contents, the benefits that come with that policy. What is cheap might not be cheap in the end. So this is where we are coming from. That if you really want to enjoy the value of having insurance, you are advised to take comprehensive cover for the different types of policies that you have. How are premiums determined? Premiums in the insurance industry are determined at various levels, but the starting point is actually our determination that we have. We provide actuaries with data that they use, and that data is passed through applications that consider that use statistics, methods, risk theories, consider other economic factors, external factors that include inflation, costs associated with the coverage that is provided. They will also estimate the probability of claims that might come with a certain policy that they are evaluating. So based on their assessment on their processing and assessment of that information, the data that they get, actuaries provide what we call premium rates. They benchmark premium rates for a certain product, and these premium rates are then used to calculate the premium. They are then used to calculate the premiums for that particular product. So this is how we then get the rates that underwriters in turn then use to calculate premiums. But before underwriters can calculate premiums for you, they request for information. Like I've mentioned before, there is what we call a proposal form that you fill in. That proposal form provides KYC, know your customer information. It also requests for the type of cover that you want, the risks that you face. From there, we'll also be able to determine the lifestyle or the lifestyle if it's an individual, the activities that you're involved in. If it's a company, the type of operations that a company is operating, the location where they are operating from. We also get information on the risks that you've given us. What is it that you do as risk management to mitigate the risks that you face and are seeking cover for? So what this information is subjected to is what we call an underwriting process. So the underwriting process is a research and assessment process to ascertain the degree of risk that the insurer is being asked to take up. So when all that assessment has been done, the insurer is then able to use the rates that have come from the actuary to apply that rate to the coverage, to the sum assured that they have determined, to say the risk that you are giving us in terms of its value, it's so much. For example, you're insuring your house is worth $60,000 US. They will then go to the rates that are provided by the actuaries, pick up the rate that goes with what we call a house owner's insurance product for that value. What rates has been given by the actuaries? They apply that rate to the sum assured, to the value of your house, to come up with the premium that you are supposed to pay. So you find that in this assessment or underwriting process, the rates that are given to the policyholders who are renewing, or to prospective policyholders who are taking up new policies, will differ based on the level of risk that you are taking, and also differ based on the coverage of your policy. However, we should be aware that at some instances, some insurers actually deny cover to some policyholders on renewal, or to prospective policyholders on for a new application. This is based on the results that they would have acquired from the assessment that they would have gone through. And insurers are really not obligated to just take up any client as a policyholder for the sake of business, but their assessment will inform them whether this is a good risk to take up, or whether this risk is really not insurable based on the information that would have been given. So I haven't come across a person that has complained that their cover was denied by an insurer, but the world over, there are possibilities that such results turn out and a person ends up without cover. But normally you find that these are people that have red flags that are known probably across a market, and have been jumping from one insurer to the next with a bad history of claims. Their claims could be very high, and defeating the whole purpose of having them being covered, and the insurer also maintaining their business model of having a profit out of that risk that they take. The other party that comes into play when determining premium for a coverage are loss adjusters. These normally come in when there's a claim. Take, for example, a fire at a factory. Loss adjusters go in, assess the claim. They assess the operations that have been going on. And from the information that they get, they can recommend that if this client is to be kept on as a client by a certain insurer, the level of premiums must be adjusted to take care of the risks, some of the issues that have now come to light that could have been the cause of the fire that occurred. So loss adjusters do have a voice also in terms of the premium that is subjected to a coverage, to a policy coverage that a policyholder enjoys. In terms of premiums that are charged in the industry and how they are paid, allow me to move on to the recently passed SI Statutory Instrument 81 of 2023 that says no premium, no cover. The short-term insurance sector has moved into implementing a no credit policy for its policyholders. This just did not arise from the fact that insurers are greedy for money. They want to collect all that money, but it arose from the fact that offering insurance on credit was now affecting the business model of insurance that requires that for anyone to have cover, they should have paid a premium. However, our insurers were offering insurance cover on credit as a way of mitigating the economic pressures of our clients. It was kind of like a compromised position that the insurers were operating from. However, this led to difficult operating environment in the sector. So allow me to get into the motivation for the industry to lobby for the SI. If you look at the IPEC report, the second quarter IPEC report for 2023, it showed that because of issuing insurance on credit, 20% of the gross premium written by insurers was held in debtors. And this translated to 40% of the current assets that are held by insurers. So you can imagine that if 40% of your current assets, these are liquid assets, are held in debtors, that means insurers have no access to that money, which ideally should be part of their operations. They should be sweating that money in terms of investment and in terms of financing other operational activities that they have. And to further decompose that, of the total assets held by the short-term insurers in the industry, debtors are ranked second highest on the balance sheet, second highest assets on the balance sheet in terms of the fixed assets on the balance sheet. So you can imagine now that we are saying if all that is held up and is not available to insurers, that means it's bringing in operational inefficiencies. So this is why there was a motivation for implementing the SI, the no credit on issuing policies. So the effects that came about in terms of issuing insurance on credit include the following: liquidity challenges, hindering insurers from creating adequate claim reserves. This in turn led to insurers being unable to meet their main obligation to policyholders, which is payment of claims on time. Already it's compromised service delivery, and with the mistrust that's between policyholders and insurers, it further puts a divide between the relationship between the two parties. So compromised service delivery cropped up. Not just the policyholders were affected. Insurers also contribute to the national economy. They have statutory obligations. And if you look at the IPEC report again, the second quarter IPEC report, 60% of the insurers failed to meet, to comply with the prescribed asset requirement. And this is a statutory requirement. Due to strained liquidity capacity, the industry has no excess funds to be investing. Hence, the non-compliance that our members are now facing. So there was need to intervene, and that intervention came through the passing of the SI 81 and its implementation in the industry. I don't know if some of you had an opportunity to join us at the press conference where at the joint press conference where these issues were also highlighted when we're launching our campaign for the no premium, no cover policy. So maybe this could be, for some, it would be a repetition of information that you already have, but for some, I suppose it's new information. So the essence of the insurance business is that a policyholder should pay premiums in full, and these premiums are put into a pool that is subjected to investments, whether it's on through private instruments or through the public investment instruments. When these premiums are invested, that means they grow, and in turn, it strengthens the liquidity status of our insurers, and we have adequate claim reserves to be able to pay claimants. So it's a cycle that should not be broken, because once it is broken, we have a negative relationship between holding premiums in debtors and performance of insurers to be able to deliver to provide the service delivery that they promise to their clients. So this was just a show of the cycle of business model for the insurance sector. So what does the SI mean for policyholders now that it has been implemented? Policyholders are now required to pay premiums upfront in full. And this, in turn, is good news for policyholders, and it's good news for insurers, because now it means that the core value proposition that insurers have can now be delivered on, which is to pay insurers their claims. So restoration to original position before the risk occurred, we can now pay claims on time because we are collecting the required premiums for the coverage that we are holding, for the risk that is being held by insurers. So that means for our clients, for our policyholders, this should translate into a pleasant customer experience. And in line with the IPEC treating customers fairly framework, that means insurers, the insured's position is restored to the original position through payment of compensation, and not just payment of compensation, but timely payment of compensation, which is why people take insurance. So the security tool that has been promised through purchasing and an insurance policy now comes into effect. So we are not only talking about the relief that the client faces, the policyholder faces. It means that not only is the policyholder who has lodged a claim restored to their original position, but their other financial resources are not strained by having to cover the gap created by the mishap that they have suffered. So already, insurance now becomes a good saving tool and a risk management tool for our policyholders. There is no more working with plan B because an insurer cannot pay you. So SI 81 is guaranteeing policyholders a pleasant customer experience. We hope to see improvement in service delivery. Just to take you back to the IPEC report again, if you look at the second quarter report, which now contains a section in terms of complaints submitted to IPEC, 61% of the claims that were submitted for the first half of 2023 resulted from late settlement of claims that had been submitted. So already this goes back to the liquidity crunch that insurers had been facing. But with the coming in and implementation of SI 81, that should be a thing of the past, and we are hoping that it should, and that our members will uphold fair standards, fair delivery service standards that will ensure that policyholders get what they have been promised. However, while we are at it, there is also the side of the policyholder that needs taking care of, because if that side is not taken care of, we might not be able to realize the benefits of paying premiums on time and in advance, so that we maintain our insurance policy coverage. This is what we term insurance policy management. This is the it's the obligation of the policyholder to be able to carry out policy management. If policyholders don't do that, that means they will not enjoy the full value of having a policy. The first one is, when you take out an insurance policy, you need to ensure that you are fully covered, you're adequately covered. And that means your sum insured, the risks that you've included in there should be properly valued and should be comprehensive enough that it covers the unforeseen eventualities that you might experience. However, allow me to say that the use of the US dollar has been able to stabilize the values that we operate with, we use in transacting in the insurance industry. Once you take a policy for $10,000, nothing happens to it in terms of its value. However, for Zim dollar policies, we are encouraging policyholders, particularly at renewal, to ensure that they review their cover in line with the exchange rate so that they are not, their covers don't fall below the market rate. You can always liaise with your insurer to be able to ensure that you are covered at the right amounts, at the right values. If you don't do that, this is when you have issues of there's this issues of the average clause being implemented, being applied when you put in a claim. So average clause generally means that you are compensated to the level of the value of your policy, not to the market value of your policy. So if your policy is, if let's say you've got a car, and when you insured it, it was worth 10,000 Zim dollars, but with the passage of time, it's now worth 100,000 Zim dollars, and you have decided to maintain your policy at 10,000 Zim dollars. That means when you submit a claim, you're not going to be paid at $100,000 because the premium that you were paying was equivalent to the 10,000. So you only get a portion, your proportionate portion, in line with the $10,000 cover that you hold. So this has really caused a bit of discomfort with many people, but we are encouraging people that if you're covered for Zim dollars at renewal, we encourage you to review your insurance coverage in terms of its value. Policyholders should also pay premiums when they are due or in advance to avoid policy cancellation. You might have been paying your premiums in full all along, but at renewal, when a premium falls due and you don't pay, you risk cancellation of that policy, and you cannot claim on an inactive policy. Policyholders are also encouraged to notify their insurers of any changes in circumstance, as this as an effect on the insurance coverage, as well as the premiums and some of the policy terms and conditions that are there. So if this policy management aspect is not taken care of by the policyholder, they might be found wanting in terms of their insurance policy, which is a contract that has terms and conditions that people have to abide by, policyholders have to abide by. While insurers do notify policyholders of renewal dates, the premiums that they have to pay, some of the issues are left to the policyholder to be able to manage on their own. So for that full experience, for that value for money in terms of owning a policy, an insurance policy, policyholders are encouraged to implement good practice in terms of policy management. And finally, I will move on to briefly talk about what this SI 81 means for insurers. Insurers have stopped issuing insurance on credit. That means they are now being paid on time. They are now being paid at the right time and are able to maximize on investment income by investing those premiums that are timely paid. If you look at the premiums that are charged versus the coverage that somebody is given, take, for example, a third-party motor insurance, we pay $35 per term for a cover or a property damage cover of, is it 2,000 or 3,000? You can take out a policy today and have an accident tomorrow. The third party is compensated to the limit, to the maximum limit of that policy, just for $35. So this means that the $35 that you pay on time needs to be invested to grow it. That's why insurance is based on pooling of premiums. These premiums are invested, and that growth in terms of that growth through investments then provides a claim reserve fund to be able to compensate anyone in that pool who has an accident or who has a mishap and places a claim. So that improved liquidity is a plus for the insurers. It is also, like I've mentioned, it translates into adequate claim reserves, giving us confidence and the ability to better serve our policyholders. You are paid your claim as agreed in the policy without delays, as long as it's a legitimate claim, if I may add. And then moving on to the final advantage, to the final positive that is coming through with the SI 81, the improved liquidity should also translate into the improved contribution of insurers to the national economic development. For your own information, 40% of national cash needs that come through the banks are financed through insurance premiums. All right. And then if you look at most of the infrastructure that is in the country, it is financed through insurance premiums and investments. So this improved liquidity will certainly benefit not just the policyholder, not just the insurer, but as well as the national economy. Our contribution to the GDP should improve, and also improve through the social protection, where we will the investments ensure that our nation has a better quality of infrastructure, and that translates into good social well-being of our citizens. So basically, this is the presentation that I have today in terms of premiums versus coverage versus the premiums that we have as the insurance business concept, as well as the SI 81 and what it means to the operations of the whole industry, and the service provision that policyholders should enjoy. Thank you so much. I think I will take questions now if there are any. Thank you, Tinashe.
Thank you, Ms. Batia. So the nature of our program is that we will have questions after the next presentation.
Oh,
so
okay.
Thank you for the clear and informative presentation. So for now, just sit back and listen to the next presentation, which is coming from Mr. Benjamin Mtetwa, the Acting Director, OSH Operations at NASA. He's going to take us on the occupational safety and health. So, Mr. Mtetwa, without wasting time, I'm handing over to you the mic.
Thank you, Tinashe. Allow me to upload my presentation. Tinashe, I'm just waiting for it to upload. Slow, but it's coming up.
All right, noted, Mr. Mtetwa. Okay, whilst Mr. Mtetwa is uploading, we might take in a few questions if there are any. For now, from the presentation we have just heard from Ms. Batia, so that we make up for time whilst Mr. Mtetwa is uploading his presentation. So journalists, if we have any question, you might indicate by raising your hand. We will take in a few questions, and then if Mr. Mtetwa's presentation comes up, we then continue. Do I see anyone with a question? Should I take it that Ms. Batia was very clear and we all understood the presentation? Ms. Batia, I take it you are very clear. All right, we have a question
Yes,
from...
sir, I was very clear.
Okay, we now have a question from Evidence Changerai. You can unmute your mic, Evidence, and you can ask.
All right, thank you. I wanted to find out, say that someone insures, say, a car for 10,000 today, 10,000 US dollars today. Then 5 years down the line, does that person still have to pay the same premium that they have been paying for all these years, or there's something that is done to, since the car would be like devaluing? What happens? Do I have to pay that similar amount that I was paying from day one, or it is to also decrease as the years goes by and the car will be now facing the wear and tear? That's my question.
Thank you, Evidence. If you could just mention which media house you're coming from. So for everyone who's also going to be asking their question, please just mention your name and then the media house you're coming from.
I'm a freelance reporter.
Thank you. So Ms. Batia, I'll hand over to you for answering that question.
All right. Thank you, Evidence, for the question. What happens is that as the years go by, the value of your car decreases and the premium decreases with the value. So this is why we are encouraging you to review your sum assured, your insurance coverage. So when you do review, depending on the policy that you have, your cover might go up or it will go down, where there is wear and tear, and obviously wear and tear, and an asset is reduced in value. Proportionately, the premium does go down. But however, it is the responsibility of the policyholder to then notify the insurer that my car is now worth, it was 10,000, now it's worth 7,000. May you recalculate my premium? And insurers will definitely do that for you. But if you continue just coming and saying, I want my car insured for 10,000, they will insure it for 10,000. But when there is a claim, obviously the claim will now take into consideration the value of your car, the age of your car, and you're only restored to the original position that you were at. You can't, your car was worth 10,000, it was new. Now it's worth 5,000 and you've had an accident and it's a write-off. We don't give you a new car because you insured for 10,000. You get compensation that is equivalent to the value of your car. So it is the policyholder's responsibility to ensure, with the help of the insurer or a broker, that you have adequate and appropriate cover, and that the premium that you're charged is commensurate with the cover that, with the sum assured that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Batia, and thank you, Evidence, for the question. I hope you answered. If so, you can lower your hand. All right, so I see Mr. Mutetwa's presentation is now up. So we'll continue with the question and answer segment after he is done with his presentation. So Mr. Mutetwa, over to you. We can see your presentation.
Thank you, Tinashe. I hope you are able to hear me. My apologies for the delay. The connectivity is a bit playing up, but I hope you are able to pick my voice.
We can hear you, sir. You can go ahead.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to take you as requested by IPEC in an overview on occupational safety and health. And I'm sure with the time which is given, it is not possible to do justice to such a big field, the field of occupational safety and health. So what I've decided to do is just to give you an overview. This is part and parcel of our promotional thrust in terms of reaching out to industry, reaching out to stakeholders, reaching out to key people like journalists like yourselves. You play a very important role as far as disseminating information, making sure that you communicate effectively in terms of the message with respect to occupational safety and health. So I'll just run through those slides, not so many. Some of them are very brief, where we'll try to share on work perspectives, just one or two definitions of OSH, the hazards in various industries. The premise around OSH is actually configured. What are the causes of occupational accidents, industry perspective? What is it that we are doing? Some injury trends, as well as OSH laws, a brief on that, and then reporting and notification. And lastly, to look at what is it that journalists can report as a way of contributing to the necessary awareness as far as safety and health is concerned. Now, we are all in the workspace, and even as we are seated wherever we are, that's a workspace which we are occupying. And it's important that we get to appreciate that work does come with a different perspective, and indeed work is good for all of us. It sustains our livelihoods. It is good for any sustainability in terms of how we live here on earth. So work is good for us. But I think we should all be reminded of the fact that work has got other faces. Work can hurt us. We can get sick. Work can mean life and death. I think these are realities. And once these realities, we get to appreciate and understand them, we can do something. We can be able to be a solution to occupational accidents, occupational injuries in the workplace. We can be part and parcel of that whole dynamics, that whole cog in terms of contributing to work environments. Now, I'm not going to go through many definitions, but in the space which has to do with occupational safety and health, your understanding becomes better if you get to know, get to understand some few definitions which are going to be very common when you talk about occupational safety and health. One way or the other, you are going to come up with some very common words. And it's important to understand what these words all mean. I've just picked only on two, but I can assure you there are quite a significant amount of words which we need to understand in order for us to understand the field of occupational safety and health. One of the key ones is hazard, an occupational hazard, to be more precise, which is a source. I want to underline these aspects: a source or a situation which has got a potential to cause harm. So in our workspace, which we are, we do have situations, we do have sources which can bring about or can present a situation which is quite dangerous. And in some cases, it does result in a serious disabling injury. It can actually result in ill health. It can result in property damage, or a combination of all of these. So that understanding is crucial, so that as you begin to articulate this matter, you are dealing with the hazards in the workplace. That's the fundamental aspect. And the message around occupational safety and health is that we want to try and prevent harm coming along to any worker who is trying to do work in the process of contributing either to the wealth of a company, to the economic development of the country, and all that. It's unwarranted for anybody to go through that experience of incurring a serious disabling injury or a disease in the process, or for that matter, losing vital infrastructure, which can be quite costly to replace. So when we are talking about occupational accidents, it is an occurrence, it's an unplanned event which arises out of or during the course of work. So the limits which we are dealing with has to do with the occupational space. What it means is that any area which you are carrying out your work, whether it's in the open out there, a person who is digging a trench, a person putting up a base station, you are carrying out your work as a journalist somewhere in that becomes your space, that becomes your occupational space. And that incident which can arise, it can either result in a fatal injury, or it can result in a disabling injury in the form of either it can be physical, you can lose your limbs, or it can leave you with a disease. In some cases, such kind of disease, it can be quite lasting. I think journalists need to have just a general idea of what is it that affects us when we are in the workspace. Any worker who is occupying a work environment, one way or the other, is exposed to different forms of hazards, depending on the nature of economic activity which is taking place at that particular workplace. So we normally just try to group these hazards into various categories. To start with, we have got what we refer to as physical hazards, which presents themselves in the form of unwarranted noise, too much high noise, which can give rise to noise-induced hearing deafness, vibration, heat and cold, you name it, ionizing radiation. These are typical examples of hazards, which have got a far-reaching implication in terms of our health. Chemical hazards, as the name suggests, they speak to hazards in the form of chemicals. Like if you're exposed to dust, if you're working in a mining environment, there's a lot of dust. If you're working in the cement manufacturing industry, for example, there's a lot of dust. If you are producing chemicals, for instance, pesticides, those materials which you are producing becomes your chemical hazards. Then you have got biological hazards. You think of the healthcare delivery sector, where you tend to see a lot of workers in that area being exposed to viruses, bacteria. And I think what comes to our mind, all of us, is the issue of COVID-19. Although it did carry a significant public health dimension. But obviously, when you look at issues to do with COVID-19, they have got a significant aspect to do with occupational exposures. Then we do have ergonomics, mechanical hazards, awkward postures. If you do have poor work arrangements, poor workstations, and then that constitute part and parcel of your ergonomic hazards. And they do come along with certain health conditions, which have got a gradual onset kind of dimension. They do not happen there and then. They can take some bit of time, months, some years, and so forth. But at some point, you begin to feel the effects if these aspects are not recognized quite early. Then we do have the psychosocial hazards. This is quite a touchy issue because it speaks to a number of issues: violence and harassment in the workspace. There's quite a significant whole array of issues around violence and harassment in the workplace. You will find that even at government level, there are some laws which are coming to try and manage issues to do with violence and harassment, which presents itself in the occupational space. And it's important that we begin to lift out these things in a manner that which really speaks well in terms of detecting issues to do with violence and harassment in the workplace. Internationally, there is now a convention recognizing the prevalence of these factors which are manifesting themselves in the workplace, both against women and men. It doesn't matter from which gender dimension you are coming from. It does present itself. Bullying, burnout, work pressures, and so forth, and social work hours in the process. Now, having looked at all this, issues to do with occupational safety and health comes with a lot of sad incidents, sad stories. And I just want to share with you just 2 stories only, which we normally come across on a day-to-day basis. From time to time, we are dealing with these issues. Here is a young lady, 22 years old, single, has recently graduated at O level. She has been a sales rep for just 1.5 years. A person who loves singing, a member of his faith or of her faith, loves to play music at various social gatherings. On 19 September 2016, working out of town, he was involved in a road traffic accident along Beatrice Road. And I want you to take note of the time in which this particular incident happened. A young lady. This is 2 o'clock in the morning. And she had severe head and back injuries, treated at Chunguza Hospital. But unfortunately, this is a person who is now confined to the wheelchair during arising as a result of work. She has been admitted at the NASA Workers Compensation Rehabilitation Center to try and manage her condition. But you can imagine that young as she is, we are talking of a person who has her employment capacity diminished as a result of work as she was executing some work during that particular time. This is the second one. a gentleman for 24 years. Apparently, he grew up as an orphan, studying business studies. He was recently married with about 3 months old baby. And he has been working for 4 years at a company dealing with metal fabrication. And he was recently promoted to be a team leader. But unfortunately, during the course of work at some point, he got his upper limb crushed by a machinery. And because of the seriousness of the injury itself, the doctors felt it was necessary for amputation to take place through his hands. These are real experiences. They are not just stories, but it's a story which try to reflect some of the problems which are associated with work. And to that extent, we are saying there is a need for us to speak more on these issues in order to trigger more action at various levels, at social partners level, government, business, as well as workers, and obviously from those people who are mandated in managing safety and health, like NASA. So when you look at this, we are saying occupational safety and health is really a subject which deals with the prevention of work-related injuries, occupational diseases, as well as promoting the protection of the health of people out there in various workplaces. So that's precisely the underlying key aspect of occupational safety and health. It deals with the prevention of work-related injuries. And to that extent, we need to do everything possible so that a person occupies the workspace throughout his or her working career until he leaves the employment space intact when he has got his or her limbs together. What are some of the causes of what I've just talked about? What are the causes of these occupational accidents? There are two broad categories which gives rise to these occupational accidents. It's important that we begin to understand them. The way they appear at various workplaces differs depending on the work activities which are happening at those workplaces. We have got unsafe acts. As it suggests, it means unbecoming behavior or certain actions which are done by either the employee or the employer, which can give rise to some of these disabling injuries, like failure to warn others of danger, using equipment which is hazardous, wrong speeds. You are talking about failure to use provided personal protective clothing and equipment. People just trying to be funny in the workspace, what we normally refer to as horseplay, smoking in prohibited areas, as well as drinking alcohol or other substances during the course of work, because obviously drinking alcohol in the workspace diminishes, impairs your capacity to carry out your work effectively. And to that extent, this had to do with unsafe work acts, some actions which are done by people, and these contribute to causing of occupational accidents. Unsafe work conditions, inadequate or missing equipment which is supposed to be part and parcel of certain machinery which is supposed to be operated, or using defective equipment which is defective, which is supposed to be regularly maintained according to certain standards, or some of them, which we are not able to cover today, are statutory in nature. The statutory aspect in terms of monitoring certain pieces of equipment industry has to do with the desire to prevent occupational accidents. We are talking of excessive noise, inadequate lighting, and poor ventilation. Poor ventilation. You can imagine a person working in a mining environment to which, if that person is exposed, to high levels of dust, if a person is exposed to high fumes of chemicals without proper ventilation, then it becomes an issue. Poor housekeeping. These are some of the things which results in occupational accidents. However, we need to take note that unsafe work conditions and unsafe work acts is a reflection of more basic underlying indirect or secondary causes, which include, this is at a much even higher level, and this is what we are trying to promote. It's a subject matter which may need to find also time to be dealt with. In other words, we are talking of the need for a systematic approach to managing safety in the work environment. We need to have occupational safety and health management systems. We need to invest in OSH. We need to invest in occupational safety and health programs. Lack of commitment by top management, no policies, no standards, again, limited knowledge and information on OSH, poor OSH culture. All of these are some of the aspects which would want journalists to begin to promote, to begin to write about, so that industry can begin to appreciate the need to have systems, the need to be better capacitated, to have more knowledge and skills to prevent occupational accidents. We cover the whole spectrum of industries, from agriculture, manufacturing, construction, you name it, a diverse range of industries which we cover. So when you look at all these sectors, they come along with their specific hazardous exposures. They come with their specific hazardous exposures. So it's important that we also unpack hazards which are unique, which are peculiar to certain hazardous, to certain industrial sectors. If you're thinking of your agriculture, the chemicals, machinery, equipment, mining, you are talking of exposure to dust, you are talking of vibration. Manufacturing, varied as it may, you tend to see various forms of hazardous factors, which I've already referred to earlier on. Construction, working at heights, scaffolding issues. These are serious issues which, if they are not properly managed, we have lost workers in the process. I've already made reference to issues of the healthcare sector. So, what are we doing at national level? This is just a snippet. It's just one slide, which is not covering much, but to give you just an overview, a brief overview of what is it that we are doing, what is the kind of national strategic approach in terms of managing occupational safety and health at national level. Obviously, with any government function, it normally comes with enforcement. And to that extent, we do enforce OSH laws in this country. There are certain specific OSH laws which I'll just mention, but at some specific and opportune time, you may need to have at least a broader understanding of what is it that which is covered by various specific laws as far as safety and health is concerned. So that's one key function. We do have inspectors across the breadth and length of our country, major cities and industries located in those various cities where our inspectors are out there in the industry trying to monitor the compliance issues, whether industry is adhering to regulatory requirements. Then we do also, in order to try and give effect to more compliance, we do have promotion of occupational safety and health in the workplace. What we are trying to do today is part and parcel of that particular activity of promoting. We want as many stakeholders to talk about occupational safety and health. And from time to time, we are engaging industry, giving them direction on what needs to be done in order to prevent exposure to various hazardous factors, which I have already made reference to. Within this context, again, it is the duty of journalists to also speak out, investigate as much as possible in certain specific key sectors, so that the nation is very much alive to these occupational accidents. and injuries. We do have the medical side of things, the occupational health issues, where again, remember, we said work can cause ill health. And our job is also to try and bring to the attention of industry what kind of occupational diseases, what kind of ill health can be incurred by being exposed to various hazardous factors. Then research and development, we are also quite, we also have got a very strong interest to try and drive research in the area of occupational safety and health so that it contributes to capacity, it informs how we can direct certain resources with respect to the prevention thrust which we have. Then we do have the rehabilitation center, which is in Bulawayo, which is trying to restore the functional capacity of those who would have been injured in the workplace. A person can get injured. The rehabilitation center is really designed to take in those people who have been grossly injured because of work. It normally takes the paraplegic, in other words, the half of your body is no longer functional, or a quadriplegic, your whole body is no longer functional. You actually need the assistance of somebody the rest of your life. So this is how we are tackling safety and health in very brief and only one slide. But there are so many other activities which we may need to share as we go by into the future. Just to share with you the injury statistics which you are seeing there, it speaks to people who have been injured. We normally track this on a yearly basis. And as you can see there, your injury trends from 2008 all the way to 2022. On average, they are hovering around 4,000 to about 5,000. As we ended last year, we were at 4,800 occupational injuries. And in the process, we had as many as 75 people who lost their lives in the process. As we speak right now, as of end of October, already we have experienced as many as 3,700 occupational injuries that came along with 53 lives which have been lost in the process. Compared to the previous year, there is a decrease, but the decrease we view is that it's not significant enough. Same period last year, we were at around 4,200. In the process, during the same period, we lost 67 people in the process during the same period. This is just an index which we normally track in terms of how hazardous the work environment is. It's normally referred to as the lost time injury frequency rate, which is an indicator of how hazardous a work environment is. We are normally looking at less than 1 as an indicator which demonstrates that the work environment is safe. But as you can see there, that slide, which is speaking to various sectors with metal fabrication there, quite high lost time injury frequency rate. But most of these sectors, as you can see, the lost time injury frequency rate is well above 1, which is an indication of the fact that our work environment are pretty hazardous to work in. I think journalists also need to be reminded that from a legal perspective, you would find that occupational safety and health is really also placed quite high from a legislative point of view. If you go to the Constitution, Section 65, subsection 1 and 4, you are Section 73. These are constitutional provisions which speaks to the right to a safe and work environment at that very high level from a legislative point of view. And then you do have the various pieces of legislation now, which tries to operationalize, which now tries to speak to what the Constitution desires us to do, like your statutory, NASA Statutory Instrument 68 of 1990 on accident prevention and workers' compensation. We do have the Factories and Works Act and its regulations, along with a host of other international occupational safety and health instruments, which Zimbabwe is actually subscribed to. We are going to go through in detail with this, but suffice for journalists to appreciate that the country does have occupational safety and laws, occupational safety and health laws and standards, which deals with occupational safety and health. You also may need to take note that from a legal point of view, I've just picked only one or two key points in terms of reporting. It's a legal requirement for industry to report occupational accidents and injuries. It's a legal requirement, which according to the Factories and Works Act or Statutory Instrument 68, you are required to report an occupational accident to the regulatory authority, which is NASA. It's not a crime. In fact, it is a crime not to report, but it's good practice to report so that the regulator, NASA, also tracks of where are we getting most of these injuries, and then maybe the necessary interventions do take place. Notification, again, it's a legal requirement. Now, my last slide. What is it that we're expecting from journalists? I think some of the issues I've been highlighting as I was going along to say that journalists by nature, in terms of your job, you know it very well, better than myself, is that you are in an area which requires a lot of research, an area which requires investigation, so that you come up with credible information which you are able to report to the nation. You are able to give insights into the issues around occupational safety and health. And to that extent, you are a group of experts who are supposed to interact effectively with various key stakeholders, from the regulator to industry players, industry groupings like your MCOs, your employee groupings like your labor unions, the ZCTU, the ZFTU. From a government perspective, we do have Apex Council. So it's crucial that you get also interact with effectively, get to grips and a better understanding of what OSH issues are coming from these various key stakeholders, so that you are able to report them effectively, you are able to report in a manner that is quite enriching and which is factual in the process. Understanding of OSH regulation, I've just scratched as a way of bringing awareness to the effect that we do have OSH laws in this country. But certainly, you also may need to have at least an idea of what do these laws say, what do they cover in terms of accident prevention in the workplace. You also may need to interact with workers at various levels. The workers are people who are on a day-to-day basis interacting with various hazardous factors in the work environment. They are better placed to give you even a much more better perspective in terms of the impact to which these hazardous factors have on their health. You need to balance perspective. That balancing aspect is very important. We want productivity in the industry, but at the same time, productivity not at the expense of the health of workers. I want to believe that a business which eventually results in somebody losing his life, or many workers are suffering from work-related diseases or disabling injuries, may not really be worth the business to consider. Because the whole issue around business is that we are going into business with the full realization that whatever risks we are going to create, we are supposed to be in a position to manage them. That's the underlying aspect to business out there. We are saying you are into business. However, you should fully appreciate the kind of risks which you are creating, the kind of hazards which you are creating, and you are supposed to have a plan on how to manage those risks. As you report, journalists, I know you're very good at visuals. They have more impact in terms of carrying the message around, in this particular case, occupational safety and health issues. So with these few aspects, I think it's a starting point for us You can also decide to be more industry specific, covering in detail certain aspects to do with occupational safety and health within a particular industry space. Again, I'm sure you are aware of how you can protect your sources of information so that our workers out there, once they give you credible information, they are also protected, not from victimization by various unscrupulous employers out there. Obviously, from a legislative point of view, the provisions are there, but they also have been strengthened by the new OSH bill, which is coming on board. And we are glad that the new OSH bill is part and parcel of the various OSH, the various laws which are going to be debated, hopefully, by the current parliament. I think we have already since taken note of the presence of the new OSH bill, amongst other bills which are going to be considered by the current parliament. So I think with those few aspects, Director of Ceremonies, Tinashe, I think I stop here and then maybe we can invite some questions, and perhaps on the chat box, perhaps there are other questions as well. But thank you for giving us this opportunity to share with you an overview of occupational safety and health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtetwa, for that very clear and also informative presentation. So colleagues, we have come to the end of our presentations for today. We now move on to the question and answer segment. So I will now invite those questions. If you have any, please show by indication of hands. And you can also utilize the chat platform, but we would prefer that you ask and you're clear on the question, and then you will get the answers that you require. So anyone with a question, I'm looking for the hands. You kindly indicate who you are directing the question to, either to ICZ or either to Mr. Mtetwa from NASA or Ringisai from ICZ. All right, whilst we wait for the hands, I see there are questions on the chat platform. So I'll read the questions. Our presenters kindly take note of the questions, and then I'll read the 4 that are on the chat platform, and then we can then answer them. So I have one from Aboch Panera from the Star, which is in Mashonaland West. He has a question for ICZ. What help do policyholders do to track insurers in remote areas such as Saikovo? What help do policyholders do to track insurers in remote areas such as Saikovo? I hope you're getting that clear, Ms. Batia. And then he has a second question about Panera for Mr. Mtetwa. He says, do you also cover OSH in informal sector, or in which category do they fall under? There's another question from Sikulekani Moyo from the Chronicle. She's directing a question to Mr. Mtetwa. She says, can we attribute the decrease of injuries and deaths to NASA, to what NASA has been doing? What are the new interventions which have been put in place which might have contributed to this decline? And then we also have a question from Tafazwa Maranganwa. He says, Chinese films have often been accused of not following religiously OSH laws. I wanted to find out if your inspectors have observed this, and how have they strengthened capacity to prevent accident at these films. That is, this one is directed at NASA. Also a question, the last question on the chat platform from Prosper Ndlovu, directed at NASA. What is your reflection or comment regarding OSH situation in the small-scale mining sector, where there are a lot of illegal operations and each year fatalities are recorded? Does NASA have a program focused on this? So these are the questions that we have from the chat platform. I'll hand over the mic to firstly Ms. Ringi to tackle the question that was from Abel Chipanel.
Thank you, Tinashe. Thank you, Abel, for the question. I'm hoping I got it correct to say, how do people in remote areas access insurance products and services? We must admit that to reach out to and provide services to the remote people, to the remote communities. However, through IPAC and together with the RBZ, there is a program that's going on to facilitate financial inclusion. And as the insurance sector, we are also participating in that program to be able to come up with strategies that allow our members to provide services to remote areas. The other thing that you would want to note is that these remote areas are mainly comprised of marginalized, maybe low-income citizens of the country. We are also looking at ways through government structures to be able to raise awareness on insurance, as well as take this as an avenue of collecting intelligence on the needs of such communities to be able to develop service channels and products that best serve their needs. So we are working on that. So it might not happen overnight, but it's a strategic initiative that we are looking at. But in the meantime, the other way that we are spreading information on insurance and also facilitating reach to our members is through social media. I think the mobile penetration in the country has greatly improved to those remote areas, and some of our members are now offering online products, and they can be available to provide those services online. So if the people in the remote areas do have access to internet and mobile services, some of them are able to access the products and services that our members are offering. But we are hoping that the Financial Inclusion National Program will bring an improvement to the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Batia. Abel, I hope you answered. If not, you can raise your hand as well. Whilst we move over to Mr. Mtetwa to tackle the questions that came through the chat platform. Mr. Mtetwa, over to you.
Thank you, Tinashe. I think the first question has to do with coverage in the informal sector. I should say, yes, we do cover the informal sector by way of promoting occupational safety and health good practices. Remember, when you look at how our laws are configured, they cover largely the formal sector. And even the statistics which I've flagged, unfortunately, they are a reflection of what is happening in the formal sector, as required by the law. Let me also point out that last year, if you have been following the space, we were extensively involved in the food markets across a number of cities covering Harare, Chinhoyi, Chivu, Bulawayo, and all that, with a view to try and contribute to the safety and the health in terms of how business is conducted in those particular sectors. This is a program which we are doing in partnership with ILO, but it's something which we also, from time to time, we reach out, in some cases really for free, because we want to disseminate as much information as possible as far as occupational safety and health is concerned. As we move into next year, again, there's a major program which will be running within the construction sector, largely touching on what you can consider and cause the informal sector. But in some cases, these are small to medium enterprise, small to medium construction entities, with a view to try and promote as much as possible OSH issues and what they need to look out in terms of preventing occupational accidents in that particular sector. Now, the second question as to the issue of the noted decrease in occupational injuries is only attributed to the effort by NASA, not necessarily when we deal with safety and health, we are dealing from a tripartite point of view. The governance of OSH in this country and in any other country is on a tripartite manner, where government has got a role to play, employers have got a role to play, and then we do have labor unions have got a role to play. So that's why we want as much as possible to strengthen the promotional aspect so that all the three key social partners have got a key role to play in realizing recognizable decreases in occupational accidents in this country. Yes, to some significant extent, the effort which is being done by NASA in terms of bringing together the various key players so that they understand, they get to appreciate their role, what they need to do in order to contribute to the prevention of occupational accidents. So it's a tripartite effort, but obviously NASA is the implementing arm of government in terms of one, enforcement, in terms of major thrust, in terms of promotion. Obviously, there is quite a significant effort which NASA has done in order to prevent accidents. Remember, when it comes to implementing programs, it's the duty of the employer, it's the duty of the workplace in order to make sure that they put the relevant programs in order to prevent harm arising from various hazards, arising from various activities. And obviously, industry there is free to approach any nearest NASA office to get the necessary guidance on what they need to do in order to prevent these accidents. The third question has to do with the Chinese. Let me say that when we try to approach industry, we do not discriminate whether it's a Chinese investor or it's a local investor or it's a European investor. We try our best to make sure that we apply what we need to do. If it is enforcement, it has to be applied across all investors in an equal manner. Just for your information, just recently, we descended on a Chinese entity without naming their name, whereby we issued what we call prohibition notices. A prohibition notice means you have been shut off. You are not supposed to proceed with your works or activities in a particular workspace because NASA have determined that it is dangerous. It is not in the interest of workers to continue working in that area. So we issue prohibition notices where either the whole factory can be shut off or a particular process will be closed off. And until certain issues have been fulfilled, then they can come on stream to carry out further works. So we have done that. And this was a Chinese entity. Not only the Chinese entity, but many other workplaces in this country where we do issue such kind of sanctions in order to try and secure compliance. But more importantly, these sanctions are given where we find that there is really imminent danger to workers. Our role in the small-scale mining sector, yes, we do very strong collaborations with the Ministry of Mines. You may also need to appreciate that when it comes to mining safety, we do have the Mining Inspectorate, which falls under the Ministry of Mines, and they are largely responsible for safety in the mines. But again, NASA also plays an important role in promoting mining safety in that particular space. The role which is normally played by the Mining Inspectorate has to do more with enforcement with certain mining approaches, mining activities. But certainly NASA comes in heavy. From an occupational health point of view, we do carry out a lot of medical surveillance, occupational health surveillance, where according to the law, workers are supposed to be monitored for the development of pneumoconiosis disease, which is a disease arising as a result of exposure to dust. So in terms of the mining space, yes, we are there, but we expect more from our counterparts in the Ministry of Mines to be dealing quite a lot in terms of the small scale mining sector, and obviously indeed the mining sector in general. I think for now, I stop there in terms of responses.
Thank you, Mr. Mtetwa. I'm not sure what happened to the voices of our journalists today. They seem to just want to utilize the chat platform. There's another question for you, Mr. Mtetwa. It's from Michael Magoronga. It says, is the red ticket given by NASA back in the day still available? If not, what enforcement measures replaced it to reduce long-term effects caused by inhalation of dust in mining sector? So that's that one again for you, Mr. Mtetwa.
Yes, Tinashe, the red ticketing is still in place. It's a whole regime and process of compliance by the mining sector, mining entities, to make sure that workers go through an appropriate X-ray screening to determine their fitness to work in a mining environment, and more importantly, in a dusty occupation. So that whole mechanism or that framework is still in existence. Dust occupation, so to speak, the mining sector largely, but any other entity which is considered as a dust occupation is supposed to have these pneumoconiosis certificates, depending on the outcome of the doctor's assessment. Then a worker sometimes can have a red ticket, whatever periodical certificate, initial certificates, and all that. They are categorized in various categories depending on the status of the particular worker. But the main underlying issue of the issuing of certificates, so-called pneumoconiosis certificates, is really to determine the capacity of a worker to operate in a dust occupation. If a worker is compromised, a person is asthmatic, or a person, his or her respiratory system is not good enough to stand up to the rigor which is normally associated with working in a dust occupation, then the doctors do make that determination appropriately. So yes, that particular aspect is there. We also monitor it regularly, and we encourage industry out there to make sure that they do comply with that law.
Thank you, Mr. Mtetwa. Now, journalists, I will look for hands. If there are any more questions you might have, this is the chance. If not, I thank you, our presenters, for the clear and informative presentations. I take it that they've all understood and we've all understood. So to the journalists, we just say now, go ye therefore, educate, inform, and report. For now, we move on to the next segment of our session, which is the exciting bit. We announce the winners of the. Okay. So may we mute our mics?
Morning, Tinashe. Can you hear me?
Morning, Loin. Yes, I can hear you.
Morning, everybody. Okay, thank you, everyone who submitted their articles for the 4th session. They were all good and very relevant. The articles were placed in 3 categories. That's digital, electronic, and print media. And our prizes are 200 USD for the winner and 150 USD for the runner-up, all at the prevailing bank rate. So I'll straight away go into the 4th session winners. I'll start with the runner-up for the digital media, Alois Vinga, New Zimbabwe, for his articles on pensioners drown in poverty as companies hold on to 47 billion deductions. Well done to Alois. And the winner was Tendai Makaripe Zimsin for his article on Beyond Physical Safety, Charting the Path to Mental Wellness in Zimbabwe Workplace for Vision 2030. So those are winners for the digital media. Well done, guys. We move on to electronic media. Our runner-up is Rumbidzai Mashaya Hanya for her insurance for farmers and informal sector crucial video. The winner is Kenias Chiwuje for his video on pension compensation. Well done, team. And our last category is print media, with the runner-up being Tandazo Nyoni of Standard. And the article was on NASA loans come in handy to pensioners. And the winner was Gibson Maka, Chronicle, for his article, How Zim Specify Mortality Tables Can Transform Insurance Market. So well done, guys. Congratulations again. Thank you for the brilliant articles. Thank you, Tinashe.
Thank you, Loin. And well done to all our winners. And we applaud you to go ahead and write from this session, the 5th session. And we'll also have winners for this session of presentations. So thank you very much and well done. So we now move on to the last segment of our session, which is the closing remarks by Mr. Tendai Mtsekwa, Deputy Director, PR and Marketing from NASA. Mr. Mtsekwa, over to you.
Thank you very much. I believe this is the last session for the year. It has been a very, very hectic year, and but at least we managed to do what we had set out to do. And first of all, I want to thank the presenters, Mr. Ngisai Batia from ICZ, as well as Mr. Benjamin Mutetwa from NASA, as well as officials from NASA, IPEC, and ICZ who took part in this in this session. We know there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. So presenters, each of the presenters were ably assisted by those behind the scenes. Would also want to appreciate, we're talking about prizes now, but we want to appreciate the role that our mentors have been playing. And we believe a lot of you journalists found them to be very useful sources. And we also appreciate the participants. This program wouldn't be possible without your participation, as well as the coverage that you give constantly. And what we appreciate most is that your coverage goes beyond just the sessions that we do, but we've seen an increased coverage of issues to do with insurance and pensions, and we encourage you to keep it up. And also, this group here has become, I'm sure IPEC can also testify, it's become a very vital database. Whenever we have events, both NASA or IPEC, we find it has become very easy for us to invite the media, and we appreciate your responsiveness to that. That's the kind of relationship that we want, because it's all for the benefit of the people of Zimbabwe. Just before I finish, I think the presentation by Mr. Mtetwa was something that is, which he did allude to the fact that there's a lot that needs to be done, and he even had suggestions on what journalists can do in order to increase coverage. You know, Zimbabwe are aiming to become a prosperous and empowered upper middle income economy by 2030. This points to increase the activity in the workplace, and the issue of workplace safety and health can never be overemphasized. And this structure, I can just say, you know, we are working something out, particularly looking at that specific area, given its importance and its relevance to the times that we're in as NASA, so that at least journalists are better equipped. Something that colleagues who'll be interested will find it worth their while, and it's something, and yeah, so we just say, watch this space here. We appreciate you, everyone. Thank you very much. And we'll see you early in the new year when we are doing the awards ceremony for 2023, as well as launching the 2024 program. Thank you very much. Over to you, Tinashe. Tinashe, did I thank you? If I didn't, my apologies. The director, for ably directing the event today, the proceedings. I hand over back to you, Tinashe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Msekwa. Yeah, I was kind of catching feelings there. So other than that, I think we will share the presentations on our WhatsApp platform and also on the emails. So thank you very much to everyone who managed to join in. We declare the meeting adjourned for now. Thank you and goodbye.
Good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And the Discord doesn't know what to do.